Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed, and my podcast host and I discovered a new Avatar, an Airbender named Aang, because your Geek History lesson on Avatar: The Last Airbender is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I am Jason. Let's drink tea Inman. You'll get that reference later. Welcome to your Mind University. What is that? Well, that is what we call this podcast, Geek History Lesson, because you are being invited into a Mind University where in a little bit less than an hour, we're going to take you through one of the best television series of all time, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
If you're at home thinking about the blue people right now, shame on you.
That's just Avatar.
Yes.
There's no last.
I was so mad when that movie came out because when I said Avatar, I meant The Last Airbender, and everyone thought I meant the blue people.
I'm going to say this right now. The Last Airbender, way better title.
Absolutely.
I actually think when you cut Avatar off it, it just flows better. But I understand why they called it Avatar: The Last Airbender. Anyways, Ashley, why are we talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Well, I'll tell you why, Jason. Because on February 21st, 2020, it is the 15-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Of Avatar: The Last Airbender. They finally put it on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a bunch of TAs.
Well, it's been on Blu-ray. It's been on Blu-ray for about a year now.
I know, but finally.
Yeah.
We waited for it to be on Blu-ray for so long.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of TAs for this episode. This episode has been requested literally since Geek History Lesson started.
And by the way, I just want to make clear for anybody that in case this is your first episode of Geek History Lesson, and in case you are joining us through the Collider Podcast Network feed, hello, new people. TAs are short for technical assistants. These are
Teaching assistants?
Excuse me. They could be technical assistants too.
Nope.
Maybe they're engineering this podcast right now. Maybe they're right there.
They're not.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Were.
I wish they were too. Anyways, these are people that have suggested the topic that we're talking about on Geek History Lesson.
Yeah. So our TAs for this episode include Lisa Lee, Ryan McKenna at Heretic Nick 816, Ryan Q Danvers, and Patrick McMillan. I know two of those people in real life.
I was going to say, there's some people we know in real life in that list.
Yes. Very sweet and kind that they requested this episode. So thank you. Welcome to the Air Temple.
Are we in the Air Temple?
I don't know. That was the only Avatar school I could pull off the top of my head.
I mean, there's four of them, but cool. All right, cool.
Why don't we move right into the 10-cent origin?
The 10-cent origin is where Ashley is going to give you the basic Cliff Notes version of all the details you need to know about Avatar: The Last Airbender in case when that big Netflix show finally comes out and people are like, hey, what is this at some famous Hollywood cocktail party?
Avatar: The Last Airbender, aka Avatar: The Legend of Aang, is a Nickelodeon fantasy animated series that ran from 2005 to 2008. It was created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian, gonna mess this one up, Konietzko.
I need to pause you right there. What is this Avatar: The Legend of Aang?
That was the original title and the title of the first series that was then changed to Avatar: The Last Airbender.
You mean when it was originally broadcast, they broadcast it as The Legend of Aang?
Yes, they did.
I had no idea. Okay, cool.
You were holding up your hand and I was like, what is happening?
I was like, teacher, I need to ask a question. I'm already confused.
You can just ask questions, Jason. There are 3 seasons and 61 episodes. And the show stars Zach Tyler as Aang, Mae Whitman as Katara. Also, you may know her as Scott Pilgrim's evil ex-girlfriend, Ramona's evil ex-girlfriend. Jack DeSena as Sokka.
Also from Arrested Development.
Yes. Mako, the epic, the legendary Mako as Uncle Iroh. Dante Bosco as Zuko. And Jesse Flower as Toph. And most importantly of all, if you ask Ashley, D. Bradley Baker as Appa.
Yep. D. Bradley Baker is also the voice of all the clones in Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
But most importantly, Appa.
Yep. The easiest voiceover gig in history.
Jason, by the way, has a mean Appa impression.
I guess.
And I hope he busts it out at some point during this lesson.
That's all it is.
I love it. It makes me laugh every time.
It's just that. So I can't do it. It's very late.
It was followed up by the sequel series Avatar: The Legend of Korra. And if you are a Legend of Korra fan, you may notice that there was a character in it named Mako. He was named after the actor who voiced Uncle Iroh, who had passed away, unfortunately.
If you don't know who Mako is, get to Google right now. Mako is one of the greatest actors of the 20th century.
Great Japanese-American actor who played, I think, 8 different people on MASH.
Yeah, he did. And he's also in one of my favorite movies of all time, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan the Barbarian.
That is true. He's excellent.
He starts the movie off.
Yes,
He's
he
like,
does.
yeah, it was the age of adventure.
He sounds exactly like Uncle Iroh, truly. And it is currently...
He's also a Splinter in TMNT, the Turtles animated movie.
That is true.
Yeah.
It is currently in development at Netflix for a live-action adaptation. Hooray! We're not going to talk about the live-action movie. It doesn't exist. Let's move right into the Meet Cute.
The Meet Cute is where we stole a term from romantic comedies, and we tell you where we first met or cuted said property. Ashley, where'd you first encounter Avatar: The Last Airbender? Because I believe you have a very cute story for your meeting of this.
I guess. A boy of questionable quality that I dated in high school, and I don't think listens to this podcast, had a very cool sister who now writes a pretty cool webcomic. And she was watching the final season of Avatar when it was originally airing. So when I would hang out with her, we started at the beginning and watched the series. And I thought the first series was dumb and juvenile. But I stuck with it, and I really enjoyed it. And I remember because...
So this was not a good boyfriend, then?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, maybe he grew up to be a nice person.
Do you want to shout out her webcomic or no?
No, I don't, because I don't want people finding this man.
Got it.
I really
All right, people,
don't.
You can track this down. I'm guessing PvP.
It's not PvP. But she had a baby son at the time, and he had a stuffed Zuko doll, and I was so baffled because I was like, he's...
Stuffed Zuko?
Yeah, and I was like, he's the bad guy. And she was like, no, he's so great. And she was right. And fun fact, Jason gave me a stuffed Appa doll and an Appa enamel pin because they finally started merchandising Avatar. And and I love him so much. Jason, where did you first meet and cute Avatar: The Last Airbender or Avatar: The Legend of Aang?
I've never seen Avatar: The Legend of Aang, so that's a weird. That's from like the Mirror universe. Anyways, so back in the day, there was a device called the PS3. Now,
you had one of those when we met.
Now, I know many of you don't know what this is because you've only heard of the PS4, but there was a PS3, and I swear to God, there was a PS2 as well.
Fun fact, PS3 is mentioned in the first issue of Lock and Key.
Oh, wow.
A recent episode of this podcast.
And when the PS3 existed, that's back in the day when Netflix was not streaming. They sent you DVDs, or DVDs as I like to call them. And they introduced Netflix streaming on the PS3 and other devices of that ilk. But the thing is that to use Netflix streaming, you had to put a DVD into your PS3, and it had to be in while you use Netflix. Why? I have no idea. And when I did this, that's when I discovered Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it was on there. And I remember my good friend and listener of this show, I like to call him Dr. Jeremy Skinner. Yes, I promoted him. He suggested I watch the show. And this was back in the day as well, where you had to start an episode and you had to kind of let it buffer.
Yeah, you go do something else for a bit and then come back.
So I'd start the episode, put it on pause, and I'd go do something for like half an hour, and then I'd come back and watch the episode. But that's how I watched all of Avatar: The Last Airbender on my PS3 with a spinning DVD.
Nice.
So there you go. Now we're going to go into the History 101, or basically for this one, the main discussion of the lesson. And all the way also as well, if you have not watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, there are going to be spoilers.
Yes.
But this series is over a decade old. How old is it?
15 years old.
Yeah.
So
I was like, I know you said it.
Sorry about it. But if you want to hear us talk even more about Avatar: The Last Airbender, please be sure that you go to patreon.com/Jawiin. That's Jawiin. We have a podcast there called Geek History Lesson Extra, where we talk for what is supposed to be 10 minutes and is usually closer to 20 or 30 minutes about the topic that we discuss.
Yes, and we also need to announce, like, boop, 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 boop. That is all part of Operation...
We need new microphones.
Yeah, we've been noticing some problem. These are the original microphones you're listening to right now.
6 years ago.
From 6 years ago. And sometimes there's static, sometimes there's weird issues. We've been noticing it in the newest episodes. So if you want to get some new Patreon, if you want to get some more Geek Heroes Lesson content, and you want to help us get some new microphones, patreon.com/Jawiin is the best way to do both.
Also, if you like worlds with complicated mythologies, we're doing Blackest Night Club over there, where we are diving into
a video documentary.
The DC Blackest Night event, where people also have different powers attached to different colors. I think you'll really like it.
All kinds of cool stuff over there. And also, Operation Get Us New Microphones can be supported over there. Actually, I know exactly what microphones I want to buy us, and I think they're going to sound great.
Awesome.
So I actually, funny fact, I've been thinking about if we get these new microphones, I've been thinking about changing our set that we use for some of our YouTube videos. Every once in a while, some of the discussion Geek History Lesson episodes, we might record them.
What?
We might make them Patreon exclusives. Yeah. We might bring that back. So there you go.
But we can only do that if we have different microphones.
Operation Get Us New Microphones. Is that the name of it?
I guess so.
Yep, that's what we're going.
Just to reiterate, full spoiler warnings. Jason, I have 2 important questions before we dive into the history.
About Avatar, The Last Airbender, not The Legend of Aang. That show does not exist.
Yes, about Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Yep.
Who is your favorite character? Because I find this to be a revealing question, kind of like who is your favorite Game of Thrones character?
Do you find this revealing just because the characters in the show are very distinct?
They are distinct, they are diverse, and
different personalities.
They all have very interesting arcs. Everybody grows and changes in the show, and I think they can kind of be reflective of you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to find your favorite character then. My favorite character is a supporting character.
Both of mine are supporting characters.
General Iroh.
I knew he was going to be
my favorite character. The uncle.
Yep.
He's not great uncle. He's he's uncle. The uncle of Zuko. Yep. He's originally a bad guy, but he's always good. He's voiced by Mako. And I think there's just something interesting about there's more to him. He's always kind. And he starts off as the villain and he becomes an ally and a hero. He's kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi of this series. And that's... I
mean, he's barely a villain, even when they're doing villain stuff.
But he always talks like this. Zuko, come have some tea.
Yes. The episode where you see what happened to his son is very sad.
Who's your favorite character?
My favorite character is a tie between Toph, the blind earthbender, and Sokka.
Oh, you like Sokka?
I love Sokka.
Sokka's the goofy, he's the Frank Burns of the series.
Brother. No, he's
Yes, he is.
not.
He's Frank Burns.
No, he's
He really
not.
is.
He is not.
Everyone out there,
He's
please
the
tweet us and say
idiot.
Frank Burns, Sokka is, #Sokka is
because
Frank Burns.
Frank Burns is a stick in the mud, and Sokka is an idiot. He's a noble idiot, and it's funny because
I would argue that they're almost the same character, but
they're
yes.
absolutely not. Sokka also grows into such a noble, interesting man over the course of the series. And yeah, he's like a full warrior by the end of it. He's a badass.
Barely a warrior by the end.
No, I love him so much. And for my Voltron fans, he has the exact same arc and almost the same character design because it's some of the same showrunners as Lance from Voltron. And I love him so much too. No, truly, I adore Sokka. And there's an episode where he gets stuck in a hole in the ground and it's very, very funny. Jason.
Oh, that's a good episode in season 2.
And there's also one where he gets high on fruit out in the desert and hallucinates. It's awesome. Do you know offhand what your favorite episode is?
Yes, but I'm actually, I want to hear yours first.
Okay. My favorite episode is called The Guru.
Oh, which one is this?
And it is the one that I like to describe as the episode where the Jasmine Dragon is introduced, which is Uncle Iroh's tea shop in Ba Sing Se, the Earthbender Kingdom.
Oh, so in season 2?
In season 2, because there are some earlier episodes where Iroh and Zuko are captured by Azula, and she's trying to take them back as prisoners, and they break away from their Fire Nation identity, and they cut their hair. But this is the beginning of Zuko's hero's journey. This is his turn towards good. And to me, this is really what heralds the show graduating from being a kid's show to a fantasy show.
Oh, interesting.
It's a big tonal shift, and I love the Jasmine Dragon, and I love being able to see Iroh be his most authentic self, because it only lasts for about 3 episodes and then they have to leave again. So I really, really love The Guru. I think it's a beautiful episode. What's your favorite?
I know my favorite episode is not the best episode.
That's okay. Favorite and best are not the same thing.
My favorite episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think, is the best written one. It's the Tales of Ba Sing Se. It is
second season as well?
Yes, it is also in the second season, and it is the most unlike the rest of them because it has 7 different stories in it. There's a story of Aang. There's a story of Katara and Toph hitting the town for a girls' night out. There's Sokka learning haikus. There's Zuko going on a date. There's Momo looking for Appa, which is very
really cute.
But the thing that seals it for me is Uncle Iroh's misadventure, where it's all about him traveling to the hill at sunset.
Oh yeah, I just talked about that.
To celebrate the anniversary of his son's death. And the episode ends where it is dedicated to Mako because he had just died 7 days before chapters 10 and 11 aired. So cue the tear bending.
Yeah. Oh.
But by the way, I also want to shout out Mako Iwamatsu is his full name.
His stage name was Mako. He's often only credited as Mako.
And I don't know the name, and this is my bad research. I don't know the name of the actor who took up the role.
I don't either.
But he actually does a pretty good job of matching Mako. But this is where you can tell there's a change in the series where Mako leaves. And also, I just think, what an interesting thing for a fantasy show to do, to tell these stories that are all these stories are just character stories. They're not important to the mythology. They're just, these are who these characters are.
It's Greg something. Greg Baldwin is who replaces him.
Well,
Shout out to Greg Baldwin.
Greg Baldwin does an excellent job of replacing him.
There's actually a lot of videos where people are comparing whether or not they're good or not.
Well, I'll tell you, I think Greg does a great job.
He voices Jedi Master Tara Sinube and Cassis on Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
I don't know who those are.
He's you'll love this, Jason. He is the voice of Aku in the 5th season of Samurai Jack.
Oh, wow. So he replaced... so Aku was also voiced by Mako Iwamatsu as well?
And he performed substantial portions of Splinter's dialogue in the TMNT movie after Mako died during... So he's Mako light, man. He's like, if you can't get Mako, you get Greg Baldwin.
Well, good job, Greg, for picking up Mako, because Mako
he also appears
was a great actor.
as Uncle Iroh in The Legend of Korra in the flashback episodes. He's worked in a ton of stuff, but those would be...
Well, you know what? I love Mako, but you know what? Greg, you did a hell of a job, man. Well done. Well done.
If you would like to come on the podcast, please tweet us.
Well done. All right, so let's get into talking about the show overall.
Okay, so here is your overall summary of what's up with Avatar: The Last Airbender. A century ago, Fire Lord Sozin, ruler of the Fire...
Probably should have done this first, but oh well.
Whatever. Ruler of the Fire Nation, it's our show, launched a world war to expand his nation's empires. The young Avatar, Aang, afraid of his new responsibilities, fled his home. He was forced into an ocean by a storm and encased himself in suspended animation in an iceberg near the South Pole. Sozin, knowing that the Avatar must be an air nomad, carried out a genocide against the air nomads and continued his world conquest. 100 years later, Katara and Sokka, teenagers of the Southern Water Tribe, find Aang and revive him. So in the first season, they unthaw him, they sled on some penguins, and Aang travels with Katara and Sokka to the Northern Water Tribe so he can learn water bending and be prepared to defeat the Fire Nation. Prince Zuko, the banished son of the current Fire Lord Ozai, that's Uncle Iroh's older brother, pursues them, accompanied by his uncle Iroh, hoping to capture the Avatar and restore his honor. Aang is also pursued by Zhao, a Fire Nation admiral, intending to win Ozai's favor. When Zhao's navy attacks the Northern Water Tribe, Zhao kills the moon spirit Yue, the princess of the tribe, sacrifices her life to revive it, and Aang drives the enemy fleet. So, if you have not figured it out by playing along up to this point, bending is basically control over a specific element And they are all based on very specific martial arts style. So, because Aang...
I think if you're listening to this point, you already know that.
Right. So Aang spends most of the first season trying to master waterbending. Book 1 or series 1 is called the Book of Water, which makes Katara and Sokka really good allies for him. I am always sort of mixed by this first book because I find it pretty childish and pretty juvenile. And it's the same argument that you and I make a lot about Star Wars, Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels. When the series was first developed and first being put out, I think they really thought they were making a children's show. And then after this point, which I think is why you and I respond so much to what happens in the second season, they realized that their audience was a little more sophisticated than that, and it becomes more of a fantasy show.
I don't think that's entirely the issue.
How dare you? That's fine.
I think the issue is I think network executives were forcing the creators to make it more childish.
Well,
and
look, because I'm not putting the blame on anyone's head. It's obviously a number of factors.
I am. I'm going to put it right on the network executives of Nickelodeon and the network executives of Lucasfilm or whoever the controlled Clone Wars. Anyways, I think the creators... I think the reason why we respond to later stuff is because I think that was the show they always wanted to make. And as we say, even with our own all ages comics and stuff like that, you do not have to play down to children.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Children watch adult movies starring adults all the time.
Children they're just little people.
They don't care that it doesn't have kids. They don't care that it doesn't have fart jokes. They don't care that there isn't burping. If the story is good, they will watch it. You do not have to put burping or farts or goofy jokes in there all the time, because that's why Sokka, I think, as the goofy Frank Burns character goes...
I'm so offended that you are comparing him to Frank Burns.
But Frank Burns... The reason why I keep bringing that up is Frank Burns and Sokka play the same role.
They do serve the same purpose in their triumph, but he's not hateful the way that Frank is hateful.
No, they are not similar characters. That was never my point.
Oh, okay.
They are similar archetypes. And the fact that the other characters in the show and the audience are always meant to make fun of Sokka. We're supposed to look at Sokka and Frank Burns and be like, what a dummy.
I love him so
much. And we love Sokka because he's not an ass and Frank Burns is an ass, but we say the same thing and we're like, God, they're dumb.
Yeah.
God, they're so oblivious.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one thing that I think is amazing is that each of the bending is based off of a Chinese martial art.
Do you have the list of what they're based on?
No, I don't.
I will pull it up then.
The only thing I know is that the Water Tribe is based off of Tai Chi.
Yes.
But here's the reason I want to bring that up is because any other show would have just had the bending be like Magneto. And what I say with that is that if you watch modern superhero movies, it's just an actor pointing their fingers and then they add in CGI. But with this, it's like, no. It's not that easy. You have to like do this
complicated sequence
or this dance, basically.
So I have the breakdowns.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Also in Avatar, they talk about their chi and their ji a lot, which is a different pronunciation for the same word. So all of your bending comes from your life energy, which is why you can overextend yourself and get really tired. So water bending, like Jason mentioned, is based on Tai Chi. Please forgive me if I mispronounce these things. I don't speak Asian languages.
I'm going to hold it to you forever. Here we go.
Earthbenders, and this, of course, is only mostly because it's fantasy.
Sure.
Earthbending is based on Hung Ga style kung fu.
Oh, man.
Firebending is based on Northern Shaolin kung fu.
Are you kidding me?
And Airbenders is based on Baguazhang, which I'm pretty sure I almost for sure pronounced incorrectly.
Great job. You did better than me.
But they are 4 very distinct styles. There's a lot of great videos that break down the distinctive techniques that they use. They do have techniques within the universe. In the second season, as Aang is becoming more and more proficient with waterbending, Katara is teaching him things like octopus style.
Now, Ashley, there's something I do want to talk about in terms of all of the seasons of Avatar.
Yes.
And it's something that is set up in the first season, and it's there from the beginning, even though this first season is it's
juvenile.
It's goofier and it's hard to watch
The
as an
finale is
adult.
great though, where they're at the
It picks
Northern
up,
Water
yeah.
Tribe
Towards the
with
end,
the
you're
princess.
like, oh man,
Yeah.
So one, there is a emotional authenticity to this show where you feel these characters dealing with very dark subject matter. And this is in the first episode. There's two subjects that are in the pilot. The pilot is dealing with there has been a genocide.
Death of an entire race of people.
Of the Airbenders.
Yeah.
And the Fire Nation is everywhere because they're imperialistic.
Yeah, they have machines. They have tanks.
But they want to invade everywhere.
Yes.
Like they are manifest destiny, this entire world.
Yeah, Azula in the second season leads a sack of Ba Sing Se in the Earth Kingdom.
Now, and this is in the pilot. It's there. So that's why it makes me think that this is an exact issue because these writers built that in. And
I accept your thesis.
And these are subjects that generally aren't in kids' cartoons.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? Like, tell me your thoughts on this. Like, is this the reason why Avatar has the staying power because it's so deep?
I think Avatar has the staying power because the concept at face value is very easy to understand, right? Like,
I disagree with that.
Hold.
Sorry.
Avatar did not invent Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, Heart, right? Like it didn't invent the idea that like these type of people have mastery over water and these type of people have mastery. Like elementals have existed in mythology as long as mythology has existed because the four elements are the biggest, scariest, most powerful things in this world, right?
But in terms of the bending stuff?
No, so hold on. So the idea, so we've had stories of people who can master the elements forever, and they tend to come to a head with someone who can master all four elements. Early versions of Morgan Le Fay were like that.
Oh, okay.
So like the idea of what the Avatar represents is not complicated. So you say, okay, you know, it's just like the introduction that I read at the top of the podcast. Like,
Earth, wind, water, fire.
Yeah, and then
I think I said to him twice.
and then the Avatar can control them all, and so they're the most powerful person. Like, okay, great, that's easy. Like anyone can understand that. Children can understand that. But then, as you peel back the layers of the onion, it becomes richer and more complicated. And the first season also hangs on the idea we meet the Southern Water Tribe. Well, what's the difference between the Southern Water Tribe and the Northern Water Tribe? Isn't all waterbending the same? And it's not. And the Northern Water Tribe is much more economically proficient, and they're rich, and they have palaces. And I think it's because they take something that seems very simple and straightforward. Like, you know, I made the Planeteers comparison earlier because, again, there's lots of kids' TV show that deals with elementals, but it's so much richer than that. And the idea that Zuko ultimately becomes a hero, and then when Zuko shows up in Korra, you're gratified.
I want to park Zuko
powerful.
Because we can have a whole. I want to park Zuko for now.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your comment about that. You think it's a very simple concept. I argue against that because it's not Earth. It's a different world, which I always think always has a barrier for entry. That there are these four tribes. You don't know about all four tribes right out the gate. You learn about them eventually.
But it's in the intro. Like you see a waterbender, you see an earthbender, you see a firebender.
Very simply, but we don't know how their culture works.
Sure,
and,
fair.
And that is the other thing about this show. These cultures are very deep and they're very realized. In fact,
I think it's because they're based on real cultures.
I think so too. And I think that also makes this very complicated and stuff like that. I don't know. I think this world is complicated, and I think that's the reason why we're so fascinated with it. But I think they do a great job of introducing this culture to you and this whole world to you.
I would say it's sophisticated, but I don't think it's complicated the way something like
I think sophisticated can be complicated.
is complicated, or Middle Earth is complicated. I don't think it's
Middle Earth is very complicated.
I don't think it's any more complicated than Harry Potter.
I would
just to come up with a comparable audience.
I would argue a bit against that because Harry Potter lives in our world.
Sure. Fair.
You know, I think that's a thing for me is that this is not our world. It's almost like Westeros. Like Westeros is not our world.
Yeah, but it's pretty recognizable as like this is kind of England and this is kind of Spain. And
now I want to talk about Zuko.
I love Zuko.
Okay, so tell me, why do you love Zuko? Let's talk about Zuko. Zuko is the villain for the first season.
I mean, he is, and he's such a butthead. I did not like Zuko, like I said, on my first watch until about midway through the second season. And this is something that we discussed in the podcast a lot. I have a hard time with characters, with liking characters who are bad guys. Even though you don't. That's the reason why you don't like Breaking Bad, and yeah. Well, there's other reasons why I don't like Breaking Bad. Sure. But there are characters that are bad guys that I've come around on. I like Boyd Crowder from Justified. But generally speaking, in my fiction, I do like good people to be good and bad people to be bad. So when I started watching it, Zuko's a real butthead. Like, not only is he bad, but he kind of sucks. Jack DeSena does I'm sorry, that's Sokka's voice. Dante Bosco does a really great job at playing Zuko as just the worst, most annoying teenage boy who thinks he deserves to have the world handed to him. But he's got this weird scar. And you think initially that it's an aesthetic choice because it makes him look like a bad guy, and that's kind of cool, but like the world, the more you learn about, why does Zuko have this scar? Why is he traveling alone? Where is his dad? Why is he stuck with Uncle Iroh, this weird minder? He's very tragic. And ultimately, as much as Aang is, he's on a hero's journey as well. That's how his story plays out. If you want to map it that way, if you want to draw the little pyramid, he hits all those same points, but in a much more, again, sophisticated or complicated way. And then he literally winds up being the hero. He overcomes more adversity than anyone else in the story.
Yeah, he does.
And by the end of it, he's truly lovable. And I think he's the best character in terms of development. And they all have great arcs over the course of the show.
Zuko has the best arc.
Yeah.
This is another argument towards my complicated point.
Okay.
Zuko's scar is
physical abuse.
It's child abuse. It's trauma. His father burned his eye off almost, basically, and then was and
then sent his sister to capture him,
and then was leave my house forever and don't come back until you have the Avatar.
Yeah, until you have the most powerful being in the universe.
Yep. How do I get that, Dad? I don't care. And Zuko.
Oh yeah, Ozai's the worst.
Ozai is the worst, but he's the villain. That's intentional. But Zuko, in that terms, his dad basically hit him. Actually, did something.
His dad tried to kill him.
And Zuko still wants to regain his honor and go home.
That's all he wants is to go home.
It's Stockholm syndrome.
And there's an episode where Azula reaches out to him and says, Dad said that you could come home. And then when him and Iroh's like, I don't think you should do this. I know my brother. Why would he want you to come home now? You failed. We just lost the Northern Water Tribe, all this stuff. And then when they show up, Azula's like, great, you're prisoners. Get on my boat. Well, it's so sad.
And that also goes into, like I said, more of the depth, because Uncle Iroh, as you can tell, and this is one of the reasons why he's my favorite character, is that Uncle Iroh is the crazy uncle, and he's the crazy uncle because
But he's fun crazy.
He is, but he's the hippie uncle. He's the
There's an episode where he finds a flower. He's like, I don't know if this is tea or poison, and then he just eats it off camera, and he's like, it was poison.
But here's the thing about Iroh, especially so Iroh does all this crazy stuff, and because he doesn't fit the norm, his brother is like, leave my kingdom.
Yeah.
Get out of here. And you learn over the course of the series when Iroh can bend lightning.
Yeah, man.
And Iroh is part of this secret organization that has existed forever, that Iroh actually knows more of how the world works. He actually knows how the world works, probably more so than any other character in the show.
He's the character who introduces that there are more complicated forms of bending. And after the lightning, you learn that there's metal bending, which Toph becomes very proficient. There's blood bending, which is so dark.
Yeah.
And all those things they kind of run with in Korra a little bit more as well.
Hey everyone, I want to tell you about a great new podcast, the Gaming Ride Home podcast. It is a video game news podcast delivered straight to your podcast feed every single day at 5 p.m. It's perfect for the commute home. It has all the headlines, the rumors, the release date confirmations, because if you're like me and you're still busy combing through Red Dead Redemption 2, well, you don't have all this time to look online for when Red Dead 3 is going to hit. The Gaming Ride Home podcast is hosted by former Game Informer and IGN writer Kyle Hilliard. Now, Kyle is online all day. He's reading the tweets. He's reading all the rumor blogs so that you don't have to. So if you are a gaming fanatic, then catch up on the latest gaming news every day and search your podcast app right now and subscribe to the Gaming Ride Home podcast. I think you'll enjoy it. Now back to the show. All right, so let's deep into season 2 a little bit. Tell us a little bit about season 2, Ashley.
In the second season, Aang learns earthbending from Toph Beifong, a 12-year-old earthbending prodigy who's blind. Zuko and Iroh, cast out by the Fire Lord, become refugees in the Earth Kingdom, settling in the capital city of Ba Sing Se. Both groups are pursued by Azula, Zuko's sister, princess of the Fire Nation. Great character design. Aang's group travels to Ba Sing Se to seek the Earth King's support for an attack on the Fire Nation during an upcoming solar eclipse, during which Firebenders will be powerless. But Azula instigates a coup d'etat, bringing the city under Fire Nation control, and Zuko sides with his sister. Zuko has a big failing in this season as well.
So, is this your favorite season?
Yes, this is my favorite season.
Why?
This is my favorite season because this is the first time we get the whole cast. I think Toph coming onto this show is kind of like Worf coming onto Deep Space Nine. She fills a hole that you don't really know is there.
Exactly, because she didn't exist in the first season.
But when she shows up, you're like, yeah, this feels complete now.
You know why?
Why?
Because there's finally a person from every element.
Yes, in play.
And then when we add Zuko to that team, it completes it.
And I love the idea that she's physically disabled, but she's still this incredible bender. Like, she is bending for money in leagues, which again is something that gets developed more in the second series. And she's a child who can't see. And I also like the second season because it goes real deep in the mythology. There's an episode called The Library where they fly on...
That is my favorite episode in the second season, except for the Tales of Ba Sing Se.
They fly on Appa to find this library that's in the desert, and they have to bend it out of the sand.
It's a creepy episode.
It's a great episode.
It's also the episode that introduces sandbenders.
Yes, on their weird garbage skiff things. But there's such a funny moment in that, which to me like encapsulates... the humor of Avatar, where they're sitting on Appa's back and they're flying and they're looking all around, and Aang's like, oh my God, I've been flying for so long. Can anyone see anything? And they're like, no. And Toph's like, no, me either. And everyone turns her and she waves her hand in front of her eyes and goes, get it? Because I'm blind. Because she likes being on the ground, because being an earthbender, she can feel the vibration, so she's not blind that way. So when they have her fly, they take away all of her power. There's a weird owl in that episode, right?
Yeah, it's a creepy owl who runs the library in, because that's the episode where Sokka reads the book where he discovers that...
Sokka. You keep saying Sokka like Ahsoka.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sokka.
Just if I don't say it, someone will tweet it.
My bad. He finds out that there is going to be a solar eclipse, and during the solar eclipse, firebenders can't bend.
Because it's the idea of chi, and chi is like your soul energy, which comes from the sun, like flowers.
Yeah. And then the owl spirit was like, you can't leave with my knowledge.
Yeah.
And tries to kill them all.
It's also funny because Ahsoka in Star Wars has a cute little owl avatar as well. But yeah, that's...
I'm going to say this too. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, please.
I think a big reason why season 2 is great is because Ba Sing Se,
it's awesome,
is a great city. It's probably the best location in this entire series.
I also think it's a great name. Ba Sing Se is the only name of the city that I can ever remember.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun to say. They
are there for a very long time.
They're there for most of the season. Yeah. Like, they have these little day trips, but you meet the monarchs, and season 2 also gives you a look at Aang's past that's not tragic. Like, when they are in the Earth Kingdom, they're trying to find King Bumi, who's been captured by the Fire Nation.
Oh, yeah.
And Aang knew Bumi when he was a kid, and he was kind of this, like, crazy hippie idiot.
And then spoilers, I love that Aang names his kid Bumi,
who kind of turns out to be a similar personality type, but like he winds up stealing Bumi back from Azula, and Bumi's like trapped in a coffin, but his head is sticking out, but he can still earthbend. But he has to teach Aang that like Earthbending is all about finding your sort of your middle energy and your balance and knowing when to attack and when not to attack. And it's one of the first times you see Aang interact with someone from his past in a way that's not shameful. It's driven by love because Bumi's okay and he's there to impart wisdom to Aang and bring some humor to the show. And I think that that's a turning point for Aang and his journey as well.
All right, let's move into season 3.
In the third season, Aang and friends invade the Fire Nation capital during the solar eclipse, but are forced to retreat. Zuko abandons the Fire Nation to join Aang and teach him firebending. Aang, a pacifist, wrestles with the possibility that he will have to kill Ozai to end the war. When the comet arrives that magnifies Firebender's powers, Aang confronts Ozai and uses his avatar powers to strip Ozai of his firebending abilities. Meanwhile, Aang's friends liberate Ba Sing Se, destroy the Fire Nation airship fleet, those are dope, and capture Azula. Zuko is crowned, and the new Fire Lord ends the war. Season 2 introduces the past avatars and the idea that Aang has access to them, and season 3 runs with that and the mysticism.
Yeah, because my favorite episode in season 3 is where his previous avatar, Roku, who was of the Fire Nation, it's this episode called The Avatar and the Fire Lord, and you learn that Roku was friends with, I think, Ozai's father.
The guy who, I have his name, hang on.
Sozin,
yes, thank you. The one
who is Ozai's father.
War.
Yeah, who was like, he was
Zuko's grandfather.
Yeah, so Sozin was the guy who was like, the Fire Nation should invade everywhere. And in that episode, Roku is like, you can't do that, dude. And then when Roku dies, Sozin is like, ha ha ha, nobody stop me.
Fun fact, Roku is the firebender that you see in the opening credits. He's mostly in silhouette, but that is
because they're all the previous avatars. We got to talk about this because up until this point, we just saw the Fire Nation as enemies, and this is the one where we actually are
humanizing them.
We're in the Fire Nation, and also this Aang with hair.
Yeah, Aang with hair is weird. I don't like it.
I like it.
I like Zuko with hair, but not Aang.
And let's talk about Zuko adding onto the team.
The best. It's the best.
Can you say more than that?
It's the best. I like it because it's a big personality shift for Zuko, because you get to see Zuko be soft and open. And Zuko and Katara kind of remind me of in the first big DC TV crossover Invasion, when you see Korra and Oliver together for the first time. Because the Katara and Aang romance is set up from like the pilot. You can see it coming a mile away. However, thank goodness, because they are children, they take a very long time with it. And
Aang's like, what, 11? When he
10
first
or
made his
11,
season?
I think Katara's 13.
Because I like to think that each of these seasons pass in real time.
Yeah, so they're about a year.
So he's 14 in the final season.
Yes, which I mean, in a medieval world,
13 in the final season.
You'd be almost a grown-up.
Yeah.
But Katara is portrayed as this beautiful ray of hope. She is always picking up the people around her. She never gives up. She is very much this infallible ray of light for the show, and Zuko is a stick in the mud. And Zuko, by this point, has had his butt handed to him by everybody he's related to and his entire people. And so he kind of sucks. His personality blows, and the way that they come together, they really clash, but then they soften around each other. And it's so interesting to watch, and it's so subtle. And this is the point for me where I go, this is a kid's show?
Yeah.
It's so, like, that's how people really act. I mean, we can't throw fire, I wish, but that's what I love about it. And because by this point, they tease Zuko, like, kind of soft teams up with them in season 2. They have, like, a couple moments of connection, and then he ultimately sides back with Azula at the end. But because, like the romance, they waited so long, when it finally happens, it's so gratifying.
It's earned.
And because Aang has mastered the other 3 elements up to this point, he doesn't have to spend as much time learning the firebending. He spends like almost 2 full seasons learning waterbending. And so watching Aang finally accept his destiny and let go of his guilt and become a total badass is awesome.
In the final episode, because he enters the avatar state, which the avatar state, of course, everybody, you should know.
It's when you glow.
Is when he glows and we can access the previous avatars. Even in previous avatar states, he doesn't use all 4 elements.
No, it's mostly airbending and water.
Well, they use it at some points where, like, there's an episode where he enters the avatar state and he's able to, like, be like the best earthbender of all time.
Yes, yeah.
But this is the first one where, like, he uses all four at the same time, and there's that crazy thing where he's like in this glowing bubble and all the elements are circling around him.
It's so the GIF is all over Twitter.
Yeah, and you're just like, holy cow, this guy is like the biggest badass in this world.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that when he and then I love this idea that there's a great moment where when he beats Ozai by taking away his ability to bend, and they're all like, how did you learn how to do it? And he's like, oh, a giant lion turtle told me.
Yes.
Which is something we should talk about in the world of Avatar.
The weird animals?
All the animals are weird combinations. Like there's a saber-toothed moose or a saber moose or something like that.
There were actually saber-toothed moose at some point, but yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're all something dash something.
Yeah, because Appa is like a buffalo beaver because he has a beaver tail.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I just know he's an air buffalo.
Yeah, and then Momo is like a monkey bird or something like that. I don't know.
He's a lemur. It's a something lemur.
He's like a monkey and a lemur. I don't know. But anyways, yeah. What do you think? Let's wrap this up unless you have any other discussion questions.
I just want to say one more thing
Sure.
that I think is so interesting about Avatar. Jason and I are students of pop culture, and we do, fancy ourselves writers. We are professional writers. You can find us on Amazon.
I am a writer.
What I think is so incredible about Avatar: The Last Airbender is if you look at this, of our group of kids, of our group of protagonists, I don't dislike a single one of these characters. There's characters that I like more than others. Everyone has favorites, but there's usually one character on the show where you're like, I really don't like this one main cast member. And I think that's such an accomplishment.
Well, I would say it takes, for me, the almost entire first season before I like Sokka.
I mean, that's fair. But I was just saying, for me personally, I like all of them.
By the final episode, I like them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's really cool, and I think that's really hard to accomplish.
Good character work.
There you go. The show's great.
Yeah. How did you feel about the conclusion?
I'm just happy we didn't see him die.
Who?
Aang.
Okay.
I really thought
I knew they were going to kill him.
Aang was going to die.
Oh, really?
Yes, because I thought that's the ultimate penance for killing your entire people, is that you have to pass away.
Yeah.
And I was really glad that they didn't do it. I loved it because all I wanted was for Aang to be a total badass. We got that. And then his last couple moments with Katara are really beautiful.
Yeah,
and
they
then,
finally kiss.
Yeah, it's really sweet. It's really well earned. And then having Zuko get a happy ending is so beautiful.
I knew that they weren't going to kill him simply for the reason of, if you look at any Eastern religion, philosophy, mythology, it's all about balance. And Aang can't die unless he brings the Airbenders back.
Yes.
So I knew right then and there, kind of going into last season, I was like, he won't die.
Interesting.
So, yep.
I also think it's interesting that one of his kids is a stick in the mud. Anyway, this is not
Are we going to stay away from Legend of Korra?
I think so, because I think at some point we will get to Legend of Korra.
I think so too.
And Jason and I have strong feelings about Legend of Korra.
Sure.
But if that's all we want to say in our discussion, why don't we...
Any other questions or anything like that you want to bring up, or any discussion points, or... No?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Why don't we roll into recommended reading?
Sure. That's where, guys, we're going to recommend some stuff for you to watch and maybe read in this one. And you can find our entire list in geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. If you go over there, you click the widget, it'll take you to Amazon. You can pick up our recommended reading or our recommended viewing, and a little bit of that comes back to the Mind University.
So the most obvious thing that I'm going to recommend is, of course, the complete Avatar: The Last Airbender 15-year anniversary Steelbook Blu-ray collection.
Obvious.
It's the one that we have. It's great. It's gorgeous. We finally got it. And then I'm going to make 2 book recommendations. I have read all of the Avatar and all of the Legend of Korra comics.
Which I think
they are
in canon.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They are also shockingly good.
Yeah, Gene Yang does some of them, right?
There's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Tie-in comics are a mixed bag that tend toward the bad.
They are.
And so the fact that these are good is quite an accomplishment. The first volume that you need to check out is called Avatar: The Last Airbender Team Avatar Tales. They're a bunch of short one-offs. It was kind of trying out whether or not they were going to work or not. From this, Gene Yang takes over as the full-time writer, and his first volume is Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Promise Part 1, and then you read forward from there if you enjoy it. Amazon actually says book 1 of 13, book 2 of 13, so if you like it, pick it up, check those out, get all your Avatar: The Last Airbender needs. Now, Jason, let's roll into the teaching tweet, which, by popular demand on Twitter, we're still doing.
Are you serious? Popular demand says we should keep doing this?
We had 27 people say, please keep doing it, and not one person say, no, you can stop.
Not one person?
Nope.
27 is not a majority, I'm just going to say.
It's more than just Jason.
I know how many people listen to this podcast.
Yeah, well, if let me just say this. If everyone who listened to this podcast donated to the Patreon,
we'd have new mics like this.
We could do 2 podcasts a week. We could do 3 podcasts a week.
By the way, everybody out there, I just want to say that has been discussed.
It has.
It has been discussed to do 2 episodes of GHL a week.
Yeah. So plus GHL Extra, that's 3 podcasts a week, fam. So, if you have $1, if you don't, we get it.
All right, I'll acquiesce to the teaching tweet.
You didn't have to write it. I wrote it.
Anyways, the teaching tweet is where we go off an outdated thing that Twitter does, where Twitter used to operate at 140 characters with no GIFs, and that's where Ashley's going to sum up the lesson in 140 characters or less. And you'll see this tweet at GHL Podcast.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. Earth, fire, wind, water, heart, all rolled up into one fantasy world we all wish we lived in, plus cute animals. That's it.
I guess that was a great tweet.
Thank you.
I think it was a great tweet. I don't know if this was a good segment or not. All right, let's move on.
What's next, Jason?
I believe it's the honor roll.
It is the honor roll.
This is where if you go over to Apple Podcasts and you leave us a 5-star review, we will read whatever the hell you write on the podcast because you're helping supporting us in the iTunes/Apple Podcasts algorithm.
And if they're international people, how do they get featured here?
Email us, damn it, at GHL or at geekhistorylesson@gmail.com.
It's just because we can't access our feed anywhere else.
Well, we can't see the New Zealand Apple Podcast
If you're from New Zealand, please.
Hey, I'm still waiting for the Perth, Australia people.
Yeah. So the first person joining the honor roll today is B.W. Desmo, who says, so glad I found this pod. Great insight into geek culture with a thinking critical eye. Love this pod. Love this review. Short and sweet, my friend. They are also joined by Dimey the cat. Are you an actual cat? Please send photos.
Oh, do we need to hire this person as an intern? We might.
Do we have enough for work for 2 interns?
No, we don't have enough work for 1, but doesn't mean we can't hire another intern.
Dimey the cat says, Fing Fang Foom Show next with 4 exclamation points.
Ooh, I'd love that.
Very informative, very accurate, and very entertaining. While there are some tiresome woke soapboxes, as mentioned in other reviews, it doesn't ruin the overall show, and when added at appropriate times, can also add to the fun.
Damn straight.
Think of what Ashley could do with a show idea mentioned above. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means
Jason's
either.
voices and running gags are the standout. Dark magic.
Oh, yeah. Stephen Strange fan here.
Sorry you think we're too woke. And Joseph2179 says, great podcast. I really like the deep dive into the characters and teams they cover. It's great that they mix up the host every couple episodes. I would love one on Moon Knight or Legion of Superheroes with Bendis' new series. So Joseph217, Dimey the cat, and BW Desmo, welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. Jason, what's going on in there today?
Well, Mrs. Katara has brought 2 bowls of ice. And everybody, all the teachers are like, why? We have an ice maker in the fridge, but she brought ice.
What does she teach?
Ice sculpting, obviously.
Obviously.
So go over there and leave us a 5-star review, and you will be welcomed into the honor roll and the Mining University Teachers Lounge. Don't forget to download and subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts and everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Spotify. Thank you to all people listening to us over at Spotify. I really enjoy that. And if you want to talk to us over on social media and suggest a future lesson, Ashley, where can they do that?
You can do that at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, or on Twitter at GHL Podcast. There's lots of ways to contact us in all of those places.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow Ashley over there at Ashley V. Robinson. She actually does a lot of Instagram stories. I don't do none anymore. And you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Jawiin, Jawiin. Now, hashtag stick around. This is the time where we make sure that you stuck through our plugs. So we have a little bit more discussion. So that way people are listening to this on their podcast app, and when they hear the plugs and they think the episode's over, but then they see that the episode actually goes on 10 more minutes, they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Did they just leave blank air on there? No. Hashtag stick around.
Jason, I have an important question for our time.
For our time or for right now?
For like our current time.
Okay.
Who is a better sidekick for Aang? Appa or Momo?
I mean, this is easy. It's Appa.
Yeah, Momo's like kind of useless, right?
I mean, this is a pretty easy question here, actually.
Yeah,
This is a very easy question. Can I give you another question?
Sure.
Fast, stick around. Which of the kingdoms are the most interesting? Which one? Which singular one is the most interesting? Because they're all pretty fascinating. But which one do you think is the most interesting to learn about?
I think the Earth Kingdom is the most interesting.
I knew you'd say that.
What do you think is the most
Well, why Earthbender before I give my answer?
I really like that a lot of Earthbender culture is Earth-based, which, right, unsurprisingly, but they are very into plants and cooking and tea. And to me, that's the kind of stuff that really flushes out a world and makes it feel real and grounded. To me, it's the one society that feels the most like it could be a real place. And that's also probably because we spend the most time in the Earth Kingdom.
We do.
We're in the Earth Kingdom for like almost 2 entire seasons.
Not really.
So
Maybe one.
but it's like 1+, which is almost 2.
Okay.
So I would say the Earth Kingdom.
I'm giving you a Larry David.
I don't know what that means. What do you think is the most interesting?
Pretty good.
What do you think is the most interesting kingdom?
The Air Kingdom.
You don't know nothing about it until
That's
Korra.
why they're the most interesting.
I ardently disagree.
Because they're the most mysterious. And my number 2 on that would be the Fire Kingdom.
I like the Fire Kingdom.
Because the Fire Kingdom,
They're scary.
when you learn why they make these moves and why they do these things, because they're just seen as the big bad for a long time. And then when you learn that, like, no, there are motives, and that, especially when they go to the Fire Kingdom, and that they're not all bad guys.
They're also very artistic. Azula has a friend whose name I don't remember, who's an acrobat, who's a performer in a circus.
Sounds good.
They have a lot of art.
Do they work with the Flying Graysons?
She does do trapeze, so maybe.
Watch out for Maroney.
Maybe.
Boss Maroney and the acid,
You mean
everybody.
Zuko?
No, I mean Boss Maroney, the person who kills the Flying Graysons.
All right.
My reference was exactly on point. So, there you go.
All right. You're gonna
This is your lesson, Professor.
wrap right. So this is the part where you wrap it up so that I can dismiss the
It's
class.
very late, everybody. It's super late. I don't know if this is like the third Geek lesson in a row we've had to record post 10 p.m.
Yes.
Anyways, that's it for Geek History Lesson.
Uh-huh.
Which kingdom do you belong to? Send us a letter and tell us, because I'm Jason, not a Firebender Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
Professor Ashley, please close this thing out.
Class is now dismissed.